Hello and thank you for tuning in to Dukascopy TV. Today I'm joined on the line by Philippe Dauba-Pantanace, Senior Economist in Dubai at Standard Chartered Bank, to discuss some of the latest developments in the Middle East, focusing on Saudi Arabia and Egypt. So Philippe, let's begin with Saudi Arabia. Its economy is booming right now. Can you tell me how its 130 billion stimulus package, which was announced early last year, has aided its economic growth?
Well, it is certainly true that Saudi is going through a mini boom, in fact, and last year it grew close to 7%, which is quite unusual in the region, in fact. But basically, Saudi has seen strong growth both in the oil and in the non-oil sector. The oil sector obviously has benefited from higher oil prices, but also an increase in production to compensate for the shortfall for the other countries that have withdrew from the oil market. And in the non-oil economy, we have seen that basically Saudi has been surfing on the public spending you alluded to, notably spent on social housing.
And Saudi Arabia has an estimated 92 billion assets and leads in terms of the size of the Islamic banking market in this region. Now, can you tell me more about the growing popularity of Islamic banking and how it's aiding economies in the Middle East?
Well, I think that Islamic banking is really the answer to the need of a certain segment of the market. But in fact, you could probably argue that the Gulf countries are a little bit late in the game if you compare with Muslim Asia and countries such as Malaysia. So, interestingly, on this whole topic of Islamic banking, it is really the Islamic products that have most notably become very successful. If you take typically the Sukuk issuance that have started to really pick up in the region. And I think that this is a trend that we will continue to see developing forward here in the Gulf.
And Philippe, what is your outlook in terms of growth for Saudi Arabia for 2013?
Well, I think that for 2013, we actually see Saudi growing just shy of 4%. The reason for that is that the country, having produced oil at near capacity, its margin of supplementary growth is limited in terms of hydrocarbon GDP. In other terms, there's going to be a high base effect. They've been growing very fast in the past 2 years, so we should see a slowdown in that GDP growth in 2013.
And now let's have a look at Egypt, which recently had a rate decision. They decided to leave rates unchanged. Now, this country is suffering from economic troubles at the moment, and Turkey has offered some support to Egypt, including a 2 billion aid package. Can you tell me more about this alliance and what we might expect from these two countries over the next few months?
I think that Egypt remains a focus for many actors interested in the MENA space. It is, in fact, the biggest Arab country in terms of population, and it was already a darling of emerging market investors pre-revolution time. So it is true that Egypt has formidable assets. So Turkey, which is developing its ties with the rest of the MENA and try to reduce its dependence on Europe, is certainly keen on looking at Egypt's development. And typically, yesterday, it was announced that the two countries would look at joining their bourse trading, for example. So that's one of the example of the type of alliance that we can see developing in the upcoming years and months.
And finally, what else should we keep an eye out for in terms of economic and political developments in the Middle East?
Well, certainly, I think that if we look at the Middle East in general, I think that we have to distinguish between the geopolitical noise and the war rhetoric even that we keep hearing here and there. And the fact that you have certain areas within, the subsegment within the MENA space, such as the Gulf countries, which have been, in fact, benefiting from the current geopolitical destabilization, because obviously you have higher oil prices, but also they had to compensate for the oil production shortfall of certain other countries. So you have seen tremendous growth in certain GCC countries. And in the future, I think really that, the next big kid on the block will certainly be Iraq, with a huge oil and gas potential.
Philippe, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you today. Well, if you enjoyed this interview, then do click back to the Dukascopy website for more like it. Goodbye.